Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Good to have you on the show once again. This is Omobola Stephen, your host on Live Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Now, if you're looking for podcast episodes which focus on personal development and self-improvement, that is literally going to move you from the life that you used to a life that is truly meant to live or what you are alive. With expert and professionals who have the right information to move you closer to the life that you've always dreamed to have. Live Well Lived by Omobola Stephen is the show that you like to listen to. Today, I have Jerry Fu, who is a conflict resolution coach for Asian American leaders. Welcome with me on the show today, Jerry Fu.
Hi, I'm Omobola. Great to be here.
Great to have you on the show, Jerry. Now, I'm looking forward to an exciting time. We'll be talking more about Asian American leadership because that's your area of expertise. Now, let's get to brass tacks. Why is Asian American leadership, or why is it your target on each audience?
Yeah, it's who I have a heart for, right? In coaching, we say our ideal client, one way to start looking for that is to figure out who you were 10 years ago. And so for Asian American leaders, there's a combination of conflicts, whether it is internal and they don't know what they want, or it's a conflict in their culture, right? Between what they think is success and what their parents think is success and the kind of professions that come with that stability. And then, conflict at work, right? We're taught to not question authority. We're taught to just kind of keep our heads down. And, even if we disagree with the bosses, we don't want to risk jeopardizing our jobs. And so even when speaking up would be in the best interest of either yourself or teammates that are treated poorly, these are leaders that are taught, oh, I'm not supposed to speak up, even when the opposite is true, where conflict can be healthy, conflict can be productive, especially when it comes to the health of a company. And so to help Asian American leaders who have a mix of culture and background, and they're trying to figure out how they need to act in a certain work culture or societal culture, to give them, confidence to say, hey, I know who I am, and it's okay if people don't like it, or to be able to say, hey, I need to speak up at work because to stay silent is worse than to risk embarrassment or awkwardness, is something I really love, because I know how much it helped me when I started to have a different mindset and, learn a couple different phrases or sayings that would help me, move forward with productive, difficult conversations.
All right. I'd like us to talk about East Asian business. Jerry, can you just share with my audience what we need to know about East Asian's business market?
I think with what you said, Asian markets, right? Like Asian businesses. Yeah. I mean, it's I think from what I've experienced with Asian businesses, it's there's sometimes too much of an emphasis on the direct financial bottom line at the cost of integrity. And what I mean by that is that there's plenty of videos on YouTube that talk about foods in China that you should avoid eating, because too often the restaurants that make them substitute cheap toxic ingredients for ingredients that would actually be like nutritious and higher quality, right? Because there's this emphasis on just keeping costs as low as possible, when there comes a point where that belief and priority goes too far, to the point where you're actually hurting your business by poisoning your customers, right? So I think that's one aspect. Another is just a lack of originality, if I had to put that thesis out there, right? Because there's a lot of copycat companies, out there. They look and see who the leaders are, and they just say, oh, we don't have to be first. We don't have to create. We just need to do the first thing better, faster, cheaper. And that's how we're going to, establish our market share. When the opposite would actually be true is when they're willing to put in the work to create their own category and dominate their own category. That's where they can really help their bottom line instead of trying to do something. There is a time and place for being second. Plenty of examples like social media, like Facebook wasn't the first social media platform, right? MySpace and Friendster came first, but Facebook just did it better. But at the same time, companies like Uber, right? They created their own category, and then other companies that try to copy them have to be content with a smaller second place and significantly smaller market share.
All right. Because you're a conflict resolution coach, I would like us to delve into conflict resolution more properly. Now, what are some common mistakes the people make with conflict?
Yeah. The first is thinking that somehow if you wait long enough, the problem will go away on its own. People who are conflict averse say, oh, I don't want to deal with this, and I'm afraid that if I try to step into the ring, that I'm just going to make it worse. So I'd rather not fail at this conversation, and so I won't do anything, even though the trajectory of the situation can only get worse. Like, problems rarely solve themselves on their own. So I'd say that's the first big one. The second is conflict resolution through compliance, where somehow if I step into this conversation, that the only successful resolution is if I get the other person and twist their arm so that they agree with what I know to be right. And like, you can have lip service, but if their hearts aren't changed, you're not going to get the change you want, number one. And number two, the relationship will go south. And then third is interrupting, because if you are listening to respond instead of listening to listen, it shows you're not really listening, and you have a need to defend yourself instead of really get curious and learn about what the real issues are, so that you and the other person that you're in conflict with can actually work together to find a solution. So those are three of the common mistakes that I know I've been guilty of, and ones that I help clients navigate so that they don't fall into the same traps.
Oh, really? Now, does it need or always need to be resolved?
With a question like that, technically the answer doesn't have to be, right? And it depends on the conflict, and so it's not a simple yes or no answer. In this case, it can be, because not every conflict is unhealthy. Conflict is always uncomfortable. You need to know. Like, every business has a healthy conflict if they're good businesses, right? There's a conflict between what's making money now and how they need to make money in the future, right? Like, what makes money for them now may become obsolete in 6 months, a year, or the business model might completely get upended by something like the pandemic, right? And so you need that. You can't afford to not have that conflict where you have to decide, okay, or even personal development, right? Like, who am I now, and who do I need to be 5 years from now, right? What you define as success and happiness, and what you need to be successful, now is different than what you'll need in 5 years. And so I think when people can get comfortable with that discomfort, to use one phrase, the sooner they realize that peace isn't about having all the circumstances in place that you prefer. Peace is about not being afraid of any challenge that you encounter in the course of your daily walk. So the simple answer is no. Like, the goal is not to completely eliminate conflict altogether, but sometimes you even have to create it, right? When you have to speak up for yourself in a way that no one else is, like, you have to be willing to create that. And so the bigger saying, I think, is just conflict navigation, because you're always going to have some kind of conflict, because guess what happens when you resolve one conflict? You get to move on to another bigger, more important conflict, right? So it's more about a mindset than it is favorable circumstances.
All right, now talking about mindset, I'd like us to talk about the common mistakes that people make with conflict. Mm-hmm. I know you're an expert on this, and you have personal experience or your career experience you'd like to share with my audience.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the mistakes I made was with a pharmacist I used to work with. At one point, they dispensed a medication to the wrong patient. Like they filled a medication under the wrong patient's profile and dispensed it. And so me as the boss, I had to go in and kind of identify, exactly what went wrong and how to fix it. And there were several issues. The first is that the technician, didn't double check the dates of birth to be sure that she typed up the prescription properly. And then the second was that the pharmacist didn't catch it. And the frustrating thing was that the pharmacist kept blaming the technician. She said, no, she typed it up wrong. She typed it up wrong. She typed it up wrong. And while she's technically correct, that's not the whole picture, right? Because if, I asked her, true or false, it is your job and responsibility to catch and fix any mistakes before they leave the pharmacy. And she said, well, yeah. And I said, I'm not holding you responsible for her mistakes. I'm holding you responsible for, your job, right? And unfortunately, the mistake I made was to, I was trying to squeeze the solution out of her, until I heard something that I thought was suitable, right? Because I asked her, well, how are you going to, do things differently? She goes, well, I guess I'll just be a little more careful. And I was just like, no, like that is unacceptable. Like I need something more specific. And she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll, double check like the dates of birth and the address and things like that. And, even though I got the answer I wanted, she, just hated me afterward because she felt like I was not a boss that was looking out for her. And, in addressing the situation, she didn't see me as someone who was looking out for her to make sure, hey, like, I just don't want your or my name to be, embarrassed because we kept letting careless things happen. But she just saw me as someone who was gunning for her, trying to embarrass her and possibly make her lose her job. So if I had to do that situation over again, I would, emphasize the fact that, hey, do you believe we're on the same team? Well, yeah. It's like, well, it doesn't feel like it. And it's like, well, what would it take for you to feel like I'm here for you to help you without, avoiding this situation that we all need to learn from and grow from, right? So yeah, that was one of my mistakes, was just thinking that she had nothing useful to say when everyone is like 10% right? You still want to build on that.
Thank you once again, Jerry, for your insight on today's show. Now, moving forward, I'd like us to talk about leaders and employees conflicts. Maybe we can say it often occurs or it rarely occurs. So what are the ways the leaders can effectively and manage employee conflicts in the organization?
Yeah, I think the first is to be very discreet about them, because like if there's anything I got right in my leadership journey, it was to make sure you never dress down people in public for mistakes that they've made. You want to pull them aside and give them respect and go directly to them, right? Because even if it's uncomfortable, people will appreciate the fact that you said, hey, I care enough to address this with you, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't draw any unnecessary attention to your error because I don't want to embarrass you in that regard, right? At the same time, because we're going to meet and discuss these things privately, I'm not going to hold back in terms of making sure that we are very clear on the expectations that are in place and why these expectations are important. And so I think a big thing is to be sure that leaders advocate and make that advocation very clear. To say, hey, look, I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this against you, right? I tell my employees all the time, the frustration you sense from me is not because I'm mad about you not meeting expectations. It is your refusal to see and fulfill the potential that I see in you. And so when people see it that way, and they, even if they disagree, but they understand, oh, Jerry's willing to push me to a higher standard than I see in myself. There's a subtle shift in thinking on recognizing that when Jerry brings up a mistake, he's not doing this to embarrass me. Jerry just wants to be sure that he's bringing out the best in me, right? So that's a start anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jerry, now, 3 important, powerful questions you use as a leader. When has been a success rate? Like to share with me?
Yeah. So some of my favorite questions I use on myself and my team The first is to ask them, what's the real challenge here for you? Like we have daily morning huddles where we help each other prioritize things. And so when, concerns come up, and I'll ask them, well, what's the real challenge here for you? And this question is great because it peels back the layers of the circumstances. And so instead of solving surface level issues, you realize what the internal issue is, whether it's a doubt in their ability to handle certain things, or if they misunderstood like a certain procedure and the reasons for it. And so when you ask that question, you get to the heart of the problem that you can truly solve, because then that's when everything else falls in line. So that's a fun one. And the second question is, well, what are we learning right now? Like, what are the biggest takeaways from this, circumstance that we just learned, right? Like at one point, there was a miscommunication over delivering a patient's prescriptions, and then we ended up having to pay extra money for a courier to deliver it, like right then and there. And so, yeah, was I mad? Absolutely. But the bigger question is to ask them, well, guys, like, how do you want to prevent this from happening again? Right? Because now, like, the conflict isn't between me and the other people. The conflict is around, like, building a solution together. And then the third question we love to ask is, what's the next action? And this keeps people from finger pointing. This keeps people from blaming. It keeps people from digging up the past. And it also, encourages initiative and being proactive, right? It's not just, oh, now we know the solution. It's like, okay, well, what do we do next? And that, is a great way to keep people forward thinking.
All right. Now, Jerry Defoe is a conflict resolution coach for Asian American leaders. It's really been a worthwhile time having you on the show. Jerry, do you have any projects in the pipeline you'd like to share with the audience of Life Well Lived?
Yeah. Actually, there's something that's coming up in the spring that I'm really excited about. I was asked to contribute a chapter on conflict resolution to a leadership anthology authored by a consultant friend, and Wiley picked up the book, and so it will be published in spring of 2023, hopefully around April. And so excited to share that and promote that with anybody who's interested in hearing about the secrets of next level entrepreneurs. And I'm just humbled to be even considered as part of the group. And the more immediate gift I can give away, that if people are excited about it, is a free guide you can download from my website. So if you go to www.adaptingleaders.com/guide, you can download the free 5-step framework that I use all the time to overcome my own hesitation when dealing with a conflict. So yeah, please enjoy that. Just type in your email address and we'll send it right to you.
Awesome. Good to know. Wish you best of luck in all endeavors, Jai. You'd like to share just a parting word with my audience?
Yeah. I think if I had to say anything, I would say, hey, what are your thinking? What are your thoughts? And how are they serving you now? And journal on that, see what your thoughts are leading you to do, and if you're not happy with that, how will you change them? So I would just say that's the journey I'm on right now, is just realizing there's a lot of thoughts that aren't serving me anymore, and how can I change them so that I can really live my fullest, best life?
Absolutely. That's the deep questions, Jerry, you have here. Thank you once again for that inspiration. I'd like to share more about your social media handles and your website once again.
Sure. Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want, but all the goodies happen at the website, www.adaptingleaders.com. In addition to the free guide, there's a blog on interesting and useful leadership literature. I summarize books that I love reading and share them with people. You can also book a complimentary 30-minute call and tell me what you're working on. Just get a free sample of coaching and see how that can transform you. And then of course the guide, download that, see what kind of dividends it pays you when you try to experiment with your own approach to conflict, and hopefully it gives you a nice lighted path toward like self-transformation and stronger relationships.
Great having you once again, Jerry Fu. I can only wish you the best of luck in all your endeavors once again.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much once again. Now, it's been a great time having Jerry on the show. Share his expertise on conflict resolution and also talking about leadership in the workplace. If you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of Live Well Lived by Omobola Stephen, you can do so on any podcast distribution platforms or any cross promotion platforms that you bump into online, and you can have an amazing time. Listen to experts and professionals share disruptive mindset conversations on these topics. Perhaps you would like to be a guest on the show. You can mail me at omobolasteven.outlook.com. Now, I'm looking forward to expert and professionals who have disruptive mindset insights to share with my audience. I know you want. I'll be looking forward to your mail. Till I come your way, I just need you to be good. My love.